will be joining you soon with the content. Tom is in Europe, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute as well. So
mics are muted, I think.
Your mic should be muted, and you can ask questions or send us comments via the chat, whether you're on Facebook or Zoom. So you can send those. We're monitoring that, and we will answer some of those as we can throughout the webinar. So, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about some updates from Europe, including the UK. James was recently in the UK. We'll actually be showing by video the new room in Bristol. And then we'll also have some updates on the Holy Land. You've probably heard a little bit about the Omicron variant and the changes it's causing, in at least temporary changes in travel right now. So we'll update you on that. Tom Smith, who's normally with us on the webinar, is in Europe. He's on a Christmas markets cruise, and connections there aren't great. So he's unable to join us, but he's enjoying the Christmas markets. They started out in Budapest last Sunday and are cruising towards Germany. So they're stopping along the Danube in some of the Christmas markets, enjoying some of the sights, the tastes, and lots of Christmas gifts and things like that in the Christmas markets. So he will be back. He gets back next week, so he'll be with us on the next webinar and will fill us in on his time with AMA Waterways on the river cruise. So we hope that you all had a great Thanksgiving last week. James and I actually, the week of Thanksgiving, we were actually at a convention for Bible scholars.
We were.
And so that was a good week. 4,000 Bible scholars. It's quite an interesting group to hang out with for a week. So not for everyone, but it was fun.
It was fun. It's certainly, yeah, the ivory tower certainly applies in a lot of cases there. But anyway.
But we saw a lot of people. Some of these professors have traveled with us for many years, and then we've met some new people that will hopefully be traveling. But it was good to see that everyone had a positive view on travel. No negative views. People were looking forward to getting back out with their study abroad programs, taking their college students, seminarians back to places around the world. So I'm going to turn it over to James to fill us in on Europe and the Holy Land.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. One thing I would say about San Antonio is we did have 4,000 folks there, and I never heard of any mass outbreak of COVID or anything, and that was a pretty substantial event, and people everywhere. So it was always good to be there. So I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, and certainly it was a normal Thanksgiving, I think, here in the U.S. in terms of travel. It was sort of pretty much back to a normal amount of air travelers, which is the first time I think we've seen in COVID. So earlier in November, I did visit England along with Greece and Turkey on a cruise. So there's always a big travel show there. So I was in London for 3 days and discovered a lot of people don't wear masks in London, and then made it out to some of my favorite sites in the western part of the country, including Oxford, the Cotswolds, and Bristol. I enjoyed doing that. Growing up, I spent usually a month out of every summer in that region. So when I get to England, I like to rent a car and drive on the wrong side of the road and tootle around the beautiful countryside in England, at least for 2 or 3 days. So along the way, one of those places I always like to go, and I had to get a COVID test. So the COVID testing center was was like a block away from the new room in Bristol. But I like the new room because it's, if you haven't been on our Wesley Heritage Program, it is in a big shopping area. So it's sort of weird that the oldest church in the Methodist denomination is located in the middle of a huge shopping area, but that's where it is, and they make the most of it in what they do there and reaching out to the community. And so growing up, my mother would like to go shopping in Bristol, and my father and I would go to the Burger King, which is next door to the new room, and the new room. So spent a lot of time there growing up. So I always like to get back to the new room, and this time we took a camera and we interviewed David Worthington. So we'll see that interview now, and David will talk a little bit about some of the new things at the new room and their outreach in the community there in Bristol.
Hi everyone, I'm here at the new room in Bristol, England, here with David Worthington, who is the director of the new room. And this location for me has always been very, very important, not only because it's the oldest Methodist church, or oldest Methodist building, it was a church at one time, in the world, but it was also a place where, as a young boy, into my teen years, my mother liked coming to Bristol to shop. So my father and I would split our time while she was shopping at the now Burger King, which is a couple doors down, and then we would always come here and spend time here. So I have a lot of great memories of my father here at the new room. So it's always very nostalgic for me to come back here. So David, great that you can join us. So we're here, it's 2021, November. Tell us, how did COVID go here in Bristol and at the new room?
Well, here in Bristol, along with the national lockdown, we first got shut down in March of 2020, and then various lockdowns and openings. We've been reopened now since May of 2021, and it's been very good. We've been welcoming people back in. The numbers have been increasing month on month. Last month we had nearly 90% of where we were at 2 years ago before COVID. So I'm very hopeful that Bristolians and others are beginning to rediscover the new room.
It's in the Broadmead section of Bristol, which is a huge retail area, which is even vastly superior than when I was here in the 80s. So that has to be really great for the ministry aspect. Can you tell us a little bit about how you, I guess, minister on a day-to-day basis here in Bristol?
Yeah, so you mentioned in the introduction, we don't have a worshiping congregation at the new room, and that's actually been the case since the 18th century. So from that perspective, we are open 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday. The one day we don't open, which many people find ironic, is a Sunday. But as I say, when I'm a little sort of mischievous, I might say, well, we're giving the other churches in the city an opportunity to minister for one day when we do 6. But to make a serious point, we do have a Friday lunchtime service, and all are welcome to come and share with us at that service. And so in terms of a ministry, it's ongoing throughout those 6 weeks. We're open all the year round. And as you say, it's a very large retail area. And so we get a lot of shoppers coming through. But we're also close to the big teaching hospitals here in the city. And so we do a lot of pastoral work with people, some who sadly had bad news and want to come and talk to people, want to write in our prayer book, others who are struggling with issues of homelessness or addiction, and again we can point them and signpost them to support areas in the city. So for me personally, I feel that's very much part of our ministry. We love to welcome the visitor, but at the same time we know from Wesley's time here in the 18th century that this really was a place where sought to engage with all sections of society.
Right. Give us a little bit of a sense of the history of the building we're sitting in front of, the pulpit where Wesley preached from.
Yes, well, of course, Wesley was, as was John and Charles, they were both ordained Anglican ministers, and they were invited to the city by their friend George Whitfield, who they'd got to know at Oxford and part of the Holy Club. Within 6 weeks of arriving in the city, he purchased a piece of land and started to build the new room. So this was a place where there was education going on in terms of Bible teaching and also worship as part of those services. but also very practical help and support. So this was used as a schoolhouse, a dispensary for medicines, a food bank in the city, and in that sense I think very much establishes the sort of Methodist movement as we know and think of it today, a sense in which there's a real care and a concern for all sections of society. So I hope what we seek to do is to be that in the 21st century that Wesley was seeking for the building to be in the 18th century. And in that sense, we want to welcome people, but we want to tell them to go out and to do the work which God has called them to do in the way that John responded to the calling that God had for his life.
Right. Now, since 2017, you've made some really significant changes here at the New Room. So for those of you who may not have been to Bristol in the last 5-6 years, tell us a little bit about this, because that's a really big change from when I was a kid and being here, and it was just really this building. It's just, wow, it's really amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, and this is a wonderful building, but we felt as though we were somewhat restricted in offering the ministry that we wanted to. And so we secured funding from a number of different sources, including the church, to fulfill what we call the Horsted project. And for those who've been to the city and been to the site before 2017, the Horsted courtyard had the statue of Charles in and was an open courtyard. Well, today we now have our cafe, we have our library and archive, we have meeting rooms, and we have an enlarged and expanded museum. All this is now undercover. Charles has moved a little further towards the street, so he's welcoming people even more hospitality from Charles today than there was before. But just to illustrate it with figures, we were welcoming about 25,000 people under the sort of old facilities. We've doubled that number in the last 4 years, so 50,000 plus, and the ambition, of course, is to keep pushing that figure higher still. Ideas that we're exploring in terms of bringing more footfall through, offering even more events. That this humble 18th century building is the room that changed the world. And if you think about the size of the Methodist community around the world today, over 75 million people, all of whom essentially can trace their sort of journey back to the building where we're sat here now.
Yeah. Well, it's this is obviously a very significant part of the Wesley Heritage programs that we offer, and as Dave and I were talking about before, and you've mentioned here, it's I don't think you come here, and hopefully you don't come here and go back home and don't go do something. You just feel that energy here, like, okay, we gotta go home and do something to impact the community, just like Wesley did here, and you can just sense that all around. So.
Yes, yeah, and in that sense, we do want people to feel as though they've been commissioned to go and either begin a work or carry on a work.
David, thanks for your time today. Thanks for your fantastic work here, keeping this marvelous site going and all your ministry here.
Fantastic. Well, lovely to share with you, James. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and you get a little sense of some of the changes they've made at the New Room in Bristol. If you haven't been there in a number of years, that really have done a marvelous job with the museum and things, and it is just a great visit. And if you're interested, if you're in Florida or Georgia and you're watching today, David is coming end of March, beginning of April. I think the last 2 weeks of March, first week of April. And he's going to be itinerating here in Florida and Georgia. So if you'd like to have David come to the church and make a presentation on Methodism in Britain or different things, he'd be more than happy to do that. And he is a big, oddly, being a Brit, he is a big baseball fan. So he's trying to time this to catch some spring training and maybe the opening week of the season. So if you're in a spring training location, he'd really love to come see you. But I think it would be a great visit, and he's has so much knowledge about Methodism. So make for a great class if you want to pursue that. Please just send me a note, and I can put you in touch with David. So we had Tom on the line here momentarily while we were in that video, but we've lost him again. So if he comes back up, we will break into what we're doing and let Tom tell us how it's going in Europe. Some places in Europe are struggling with their COVID numbers now. So it is some countries. Austria is actually totally closed to visitors, and others have more stringent requirements right now, which seems a little bit odd. But we're also seeing that here in the United States too. I know here in Florida we went through our Delta wave in July, August in the summertime. But I see now that folks further up in the north who avoided it in the summer now are seeing increasing numbers in Michigan and Vermont. I think I've seen those places. I think we're seeing, the whole world's learning as we go along, that the vaccine protection does seem to wane over time, and that booster shot is needed. So in Europe, in some of these locations, they missed the Delta wave completely in the summertime, and now we're just sort of getting it like Michigan and Vermont are. And so that's been alarming to them. They're taking the necessary precautions in those places to control that, and obviously really ramping up the booster efforts. I think Austria is going to try to federally mandate everyone get the vaccine. I believe they would be the first country to attempt to do that. So they're saying that by February 1, we'll see if that happens, if that passes through the Austrian court system. But everyone's taking it seriously, and doing everything they can to control the waves, like we did here in Florida in the summertime. So it's just different periods. I don't see that impacting travel next summer. These events are localized. So in Florida now, we don't even think about the Delta variant anymore. Here in December, where it was the number one thought in our mind back in the summertime. So again, everyone's just on a different cycle, it seems, and they have to roll out their boosters now. They were vaccinated later than we were here in the United States for the most part. So we will continue, obviously, to monitor all those developments. Nothing has changed with Oberammergau and the Passion Play, that they're still planning on operating. I do think if like a country like Austria requires vaccinations, that they will probably require visitors to be vaccinated in the summer. So we're still preparing for that. Don't know that for sure. So that's our update from Europe as best we know it now. And I understand Tom is on the line. So Tom, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, James. Can you hear me?
Good. Where on the Danube are you?
Somewhere between Vienna and Passau, I guess. We just went through our third lock.
Okay. So so how's the cruise going? I just gave an update on Europe, and you're there between Austria and the Czech Republic, which of course have higher instances of cases. How has it been going? Have you been able to do things as you've been cruising?
We were able to do whatever we wanted in Hungary. And I don't know, I'm probably breaking up because you guys are breaking up really bad on my end. But in Hungary, everything was pretty normal. Of course, we're not allowed to port in Slovakia or in Austria. So we have a day at sea, which is a day on the river, which has been pretty fun. They've really taken good care of us. We've had some really good events here. I've gotten to do a couple of my lectures, which was just enthralling for everyone. But it's going well. But we haven't been able to go into Austria.
Mm-hmm.
So how is the Christmas markets? This is your first time to see those. Have not been there myself. I saw them being set up a couple of years ago when I was on a river cruise. So what's that Christmas market experience like?
Mark, I've been wanting to do this Christmas market for 10 years. And so I've been so pumped up about it. And the first one we got to start with was in Budapest at St. Stephen's Basilica. And I think you guys might have some pictures there of it. But it was marvelous. I mean, we've been to 4 Christmas markets now, and they've been awesome. I mean, they were all I expected. Lots more food, I guess, than I expected. But that part has been awesome. The Yeah, there's St. Stephen's Basilica coming on your screen there. And they do a light show every 30 minutes on the front of that basilica. And it's pretty awesome. That's a little skating ring you're seeing there. It's got the Christmas tree in the center, and almost every one of them have a Christmas tree somewhere in there. And you can see all the handmade. Of course, in Budapest, they're known for their hand puppets. And I think that on the right-hand side of the screen there, you'll see all the puppets, the hand puppets that were for sale there in the Christmas market, along with all the St. Nicholas ornaments and such there.
So were there, I don't know if you can tell this, but are there visitors from all over the world there right now, or mostly local people?
It seems like all over the world. Here on the boat, we're on the Amabella right now, and there are our cruise director said that we had 4 countries that were on board the ship with us. Yeah, I think Canada, Slovakia, the U.S., and he said Texas, and then laughed real big. So, but no, in the Christmas markets, it seemed like that we had people. I heard a lot of different languages being spoken. So I saw a lot of folks from the Asian parts of the world, and so there are a lot of different folks here.
So what are the other travelers from EO? What have you heard from them about the cruise this week?
They've been excited. You know, I've been with them. We've ate dinner with them and breakfast. We've got 2 very young couples, both couples in their 30s. They're one of the couples, the sisters, their mom and dad were supposed to come, and they had a medical event right before departure, actually on Friday. So they went ahead and came. The two couples did, the sisters and their husbands, and it's been fun. We've had a blast. They keep going on and on about the different stuff they're trying, and so it's the people here with EO are really pumped up and excited. I tried to send some video back, but the internet connection from the ship has been really, really bad, and we're stopping in little ports we wouldn't normally stop in, so that has really decreased availability of signal.
Well, I know for next year, AMA Waterways in 2022 is already filling up their ships. So for those of you out there that are considering a river cruise, it's a great experience. It's a great way to see Europe. And at least for 2022, the ships are filling up fast. I know we've had people, we have a couple of our Tulip Time cruises that are pretty full already, and there's no more cabins on the ship available. So if you're thinking to do that, you may want to book your spaces now and start recruiting your groups to join us for next year. Tom, anything else about just travel going through Europe before we lose you again?
You know, yeah, it went a lot smoother than I expected, Mark. We came through London Heathrow. Some of the folks came through Amsterdam on our connections, but no real problems. Everybody got into Budapest, and I was really surprised and pleased at how well all of the flights went. I did have one question. James, are we using the Amabella? Is that one of the ships we're using for our Oberammergau cruises?
Yeah, Tom, the Amabella we're using the Ama Verde and the Amabella. So we have the Amabella, I think, 4 different times in this next summer. So yes, it is absolutely one of our 2 ships.
Well, and I will just say that they have just refurbished the Amabella. I'm on it right now, and it is drop dead gorgeous. It really is. I think that Ryan has a picture of the lobby there, the Christmas tree, but they've just really redone it all, and it's really nice.
So you're volunteering for one of those summer cruises next summer. Is that what I'm reading into that statement, Tom?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Be glad. And I would take cabin number 219 and be excited about that.
Okay. We will we'll make that note. Very good. Well, Tom, we appreciate you joining us from the Danube, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the cruise. I know, I think somewhere along the line you texted me that you found some really good hot chocolate somewhere, so we hope that continues.
Yes, it was delicious. It's the best hot chocolate I've ever had in my life. So
So
y'all
fantastic.
take care. Thanks for letting me be here. I'll hope that the rest of the webinar goes well.
Thanks, Tom. We appreciate it. Let me also say, I failed to mention in the European update, we did say Austria is closed, and Tom just reconfirmed that. Some of these decisions, obviously the numbers in Austria are higher, but some are also economically driven. So Austria will reopen on December 12th, I think, just no matter where the numbers are, and they are coming down. They're seeing a lot of people get vaccinated, so I think that's serving the purpose. But you also have to understand that in the wintertime, a huge amount of income is coming from the ski season. So it was easier to close Austria down at the beginning of the ski season when it was very light than have it affect the rest of the ski season later on, January, February, March. So I think that was part of the reason strategically, let's do this now and control things, and then we'll be ready to go come middle of December for the rest of the winter tourism season, which in Austria is a big deal. So so sometimes you run into the economic decisions coming into play as well. Moving along to Israel for the update there. Israel also chose to close the borders to tourists, I think Sunday night. So that's a 2-week closure. And I don't have any more information than if it's going to be strictly 2 weeks or is going to go longer. I know everything I'm reading from the health people is that they just wanted to see, how the Omicron variant, how effective vaccines were against this variant, and would it affect any part of the population more than others? What are the effects? So they wanted a couple weeks just to study and see that, and to figure out what the best course of action would be to keep their population safe. In Israel currently, there are less than 6,000 people with COVID cases, so that's about as low as it's been throughout the whole Delta cycle, if not the lowest, and only maybe 100 in the hospitals. So in Israel, everything's under control. Touring has gone normally for all the groups that are there, and we still have groups there. And I did an interview yesterday with a group from Jerusalem, so they'll talk a little bit about that. So we do anticipate Israel reopening around the 13th of December. We're waiting for official word on that. Again, everyone has to be vaccinated going there, and with a booster shot. Again, if the entire world is obviously seeing where this variant is. It's just really hard to say if that action was taken too quickly or not quickly enough. I don't know. But Israel is going to look out for the safety of their population and anyone else who's in the country. So I think that gives everyone a sense of security that if you're there in Israel, you're going to be as safe as anywhere else in the world, if not safer. So I think that's the big takeaway there. For our groups we had a few groups that were to depart Monday, Tuesday, and a couple next week. We've been working with the airlines to reschedule those groups, working through that process now. It was a very, very quick announcement, so we had a little bit of time to try to deal with the groups that were traveling. So we're still working through that. No one's losing money here. Several have already rescheduled to January already. So other than that, we are excited to move forward once Israel reopens. And typically for us, after the 6th or 7th of December, those departure dates, we really have a lull for 2-3 weeks until after Christmas. So it's a slower time for us here, and then we are continuing our preparations for the winter. So yesterday I interviewed Vic Willis, Pastor Vic Willis from Inglewood UMC, who was there now, had just finished their tour. They had a free day yesterday just to set the stage, and They were on their way to Egypt today. So it was good to get them yesterday at the end of their day, at the end of their tour in Israel. So let's look at that interview now. I am joined here today by Pastor Vic Willis from Inglewood UMC in Florida, and he's with Sim and Joan, and they have just finished. I think it's been 11 days, correct, in the Holy Land, Vic?
Yeah, it's about that. This is our free day, and we leave tomorrow for Egypt.
Vic, you've been multiple times to the Holy Land. You can tell us how many. So how is this compared to previous visits?
Quite different. I've been 7 times. This is my 7th time, and yeah, every other time has been just packed with tourists, and that's understandable. This time we were the only ones at many of the sites that we were at, and it was just eerie almost, but beautiful at the same time. Heartbreaking for the people who are trying to make a living here, but at the same time, it was such a rich experience, I think, for everyone, because they got to spend more time at each site. It's and ask questions, linger longer. It was just an amazing experience, I thought.
Now, I'm going to ask about COVID and how did that affect the travel experience, but I'm assuming here at this point that you know there's a new variant out there in the world, the Omicron variant, and they've closed Israel down to new incoming tourists. So first, tell us about the COVID, and then did you experience anything different once they locked down? Because a lot of people are questioning, well, can we do things once we get there? So you've sort of been there with the old COVID rules and then the new variant. Anything change?
Well, actually, the COVID regulations made us feel safer because they're so strict on the entry point through the airport. Made me feel safer than many places in the U.S. Because they are so careful about it here in Israel. And as we traveled around, we felt it really wasn't much different than times before. It was very much the same. People were not afraid of us because we were, foreigners. We were out of the country people. People were very welcoming to us. In fact, I think they were more welcoming than usual because they've not had so many. They've not had tourists for a year and a half, and it's been, I think, a real breath of fresh air to see a group. Some people, as we rounded a corner, oh, there's tourists back. There's tourists back, and they'd be welcoming us like that. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, you sort of get that rock star feel, like, oh, gee, we now, with Israel closing down, I think that was Sunday night to new tourists and the new variant. Did anything change with your experience, or it was pretty much we just kept going right on?
No, I mean there've been some talk of there won't be too many tourists for a while now. We're kind of the last ones. We got in this sandwich area between November 1st and November, whenever it was that they closed down. So we feel very fortunate about that. But no difference there. There's not been any people checking us or anything like that. It's been very much the same and very pleasant.
Yeah, let me talk to Sim and Joan there. Is this your first, for both of you, is it your first time in the Holy Land, or have you been before?
Me, Sam?
Yes, I'm a first time too.
Yes.
So 2 first timers. How have you found the Holy Land? Have you felt safe? What's the experience been like for you?
I think it is very safe. I didn't feel any uncomfortable or anything. And even people are really kind. And I'm a Korean American, even though I feel like I'm the only Asian. I mean, walking on the street, but people are kind and are not any different. I enjoyed it. Wonderful. Yes, wonderful experience. Such a blessed.
Yes.
Good.
And Rula is so knowledgeable, and regardless of the subject or the oddball questions that we could throw at her, she had an answer. You know, and if she didn't, she'd say, "I'll check on that," and she did. She was. I can't give her any higher praises.
Ladies, how is the trip? How has the trip affected you spiritually, or you're going to read the
Wow.
Bible differently? Describe that for us.
I've cried more than once because it is emotionally. It brings the words home to you. Yes, more than I expected. I've been to Rome. It's like, yeah, the buildings are kind of like Rome, but it's so much more than Italy. It means so much more.
Sim?
Yeah, I compare to Bible and kind of little realities are kind of little things is different. I learned a lot more and more deep into the spirituality too. Yes.
What was your favorite site, if I could ask?
The garden tomb. The sun was shining, the group was small. There was another group at a lower level singing praises. Didn't understand the language, but you knew they were singing praises to the Lord. And the whole experience was wonderful. We did a communion. We did communion there.
Yeah, and it's always I think that a trip like that, particularly a place like the Garden Tomb, and hearing Christians in a totally different language is a very powerful thing to sort of feel that connectedness across different cultures, worshiping. Okay, Sim, yeah, I'm not letting you off the hook here. Do you have a favorite place for us?
Yeah, I think it's the Holy Sepulchre. So we went to, today is a free day and we went there again.
Yeah, and many people there, or is it still pretty empty?
No, it was pretty empty today.
Vic, coming back to you, what would you tell group leaders? And we obviously have a lot of group leaders to come that are scheduled to come with their groups in January, February, March. What would your words of wisdom be to them right now?
If at all possible, come. Don't delay. This is the time that you'll be received with open arms. That people are just they're so ready to receive, and there will probably be smaller crowds even in January. I would say there'll be smaller crowds all first 6 months of the next year. Come if you can. Come if you can, because it's, like I said, out of 7 times, my most amazing experience has been this time.
Yeah. Now, Vic, you've traveled 7 times to the Holy Land, and you've traveled a lot of other places with EO through the years. And what have you seen the impacts on the folks you've traveled with?
Oh my, it's been life-changing for so many people. These folks that come here, they read the Bible differently. They have, some have taken Disciple Bible Study before they come. And that's really, they said, I wish I had come before I took Disciple Bible Study so that they could have this image and these visions and these visuals in their mind as they took the study. And we have several with us this time that are sort of combining those two, the study of the disciple with this trip. And it's been really enriching for them. This time, Pastor Bo here shared a devotion on the Sea of Galilee that was very special. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that, Bo, what took place.
If I could, a little bit on the boat, and Pastor Vic asked me to share at the Sea of Galilee, and in the midst of, and what an honor to be, and put me in the place. This is where he preached, in a way he preached. And even sea captain of the boat and turned the engine and just drifted, and they were listening in. And I was just so overwhelmed and touched and graced by the Holy Spirit. So, and thank you.
Well, Bo, I'm so happy you had that experience. I just know you were so excited to go when I visited you all down in person. Pastor Vic, you had, I want to say you had like 80 folks originally to go on the trip, and then it dwindled down to 30, just, a lot of people watch the news. So when you go back to church, what are you going to tell the folks that maybe didn't come that, were scared because of COVID or, any other reasons?
I'm going to say, boy, you missed a chance of a lifetime to really see Israel, see where Jesus was, see where Bethany is in regards to Jerusalem, see the Valley of Armageddon, where you could picture Jesus riding out on his white horse. You missed it. You missed it.
Well, you mentioned the fact that I'll be retiring. So I'm passing the mantle on to Pastor Bo. And there are 56 people that were signed up for this trip that many of them said right before we left, oh, I wish I hadn't backed out on you. I wish I had stayed. So Bo's going to pick those people up for next November. And right.
Great.
Amen to that.
Yeah. Anything else you all would share? Rosie, what was your favorite place?
Well, really, the Valley of Armageddon. I mean, just to know that that's going to happen. And I saw the place where that's going to happen. It was, it was very moving. I loved it.
Vic, anything else you would like to share with us today?
Well, for the leaders, you had mentioned, and I would just encourage the men and women who are leading groups to go for it. Don't let anything hold you back. There's, frankly, if you have a smaller group right now, it's a good thing. And the groups will grow as time goes on. But right now, I've got 30. This is the smallest group I've ever brought, and we're like family. We're really bonding. This has been a really cool experience with a smaller group. So go with who you have and have a great time.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate all of you taking your time and time with us today. And for those of you going on to Egypt, I hope that's a wonderful experience. I'll check in with the folks in Cairo and make sure they're ready for you tomorrow. We've been talking about it. So the Egyptians are very happy to have someone coming through the Taba border again. So, but again, thanks for your time today, and continued safe travels to all of you. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. We filmed that yesterday before, they had time before they traveled south today. I had been down to the church in Inglewood to meet with the group about a month before they left. So we went through all the requirements they had to go through to make the trip. So I had gotten to know those folks personally. It's probably my longest ever tour meeting. I must have been there 2.5 hours. They had lots of questions. So, but just a great group of folks. And my parents actually attended that church for a while when they lived down in the Inglewood, Florida area. So it was also nice to have that connection. And I think you could see just the genuine responses there that, there are obviously more things to navigate to get to the Holy Land, but once you get there, the benefits are still the same. Those of you who have led groups before, that hasn't changed during COVID. If not, they're even, I think, more enhanced. So if you can stay the course and weather sort of all the variant hoopla you'll have a good experience in 2022. We will wait and see if there are any new guidelines for entry. I don't really think that's going to be the case. I think the Israelis are really just taking a pause, seeing what happens with this variant, understanding it, and then I think we're going to go back to the same procedure, which is already probably the most stringent in the world coming into a country. So, but if we if we have any updates, we'll certainly get those to you. And recently we did, for our tour host traveling in the first quarter, we did a webinar. I think we did 8 webinars with folks, with our tour host traveling on those. And we went through step by step through the guidelines and what everyone needed. If you happen to miss those, or you want to see it and you're traveling in April, May, June, we're posting the link in the chat room to one of those webinars that we did, and you'll get a better understanding of what is needed to travel to Israel. So we'll walk you through that, get you there, and then you'll have just a wonderful experience in the Holy Land. So Mark, I think that's it for me.
Okay. Well, as James said, we're in a little bit of a lull in our normal schedule with groups traveling right now, but we're getting ready for a busy January, February, March. And one of the trips coming up is our celebration cruise. And we actually still have a handful of cabins, a couple handful of cabins available. So if you'd like to join us in the Caribbean, to go kind of all over the Western Caribbean with us, you still have time to join us. We will have our missions excursions on this cruise, as well as other excursions. We have guest speaker, guest musician. So it'll be a great time of fellowship and fun and just getting back together on the seas. So sign up for that as soon as you can. Those that are registered, you'll get an email from us in the next few days about the excursion opportunities. We have some openings on the missions excursions, so you can join us on those or on some of the island excursions. So take a check on that. Going a little bit more into 2022, we have our Mediterranean cruises, our Bible Lands cruises. And this particular one that's on the screen, we do have an early registration discount that will end later on in December, so you can still take advantage of that $150 savings. So take a look at that. That's one of only a couple sailings that will go out of Venice. So if you wanted to go to Venice, we'll have a post-tour there. We have a pre-tour in Florence and a great batch of ports that we're visiting. Oberammergau is still in the works, and we are getting deep into the planning for that one, finalizing things for groups. We have tickets available and a lot of prime dates. So if you're looking to go in the summer, we have June and July dates. We still have tickets, but again, those could go quickly. So I'd encourage you to take a look at what's available. If you're recruiting, urge people to join us. If you're not recruiting, want to make a last-minute change, we can still accommodate some groups on select dates. So join us for the Oberammergau. Again, if you miss it this year, you're going to have to wait 8 more years. So this is a good time to go. And then we have our FAM trips. So we have a full slate of FAM trips for 2022. Some of these you've seen before. So we have the choir leader FAM trip. We'll visit some churches where you can actually take your group's choir music group to perform, and we'll help you kind of learn how that happens. We have a new destination in Croatia. This is the first time EO is taking groups there specifically. Once in a while, one of our cruises stops there, but this is a dedicated land tour to Croatia. So join us there. Another site, a new place for a FAM trip is the Camino de Santiago. James was just there a month or so ago. So very unique site, one of the oldest pilgrimage sites in history, the Way of St. John. So you can join us there for a FAM trip. And then 2 kind of favorite places, we have Greece and Turkey, and we have those FAM trips now scheduled again. These were popular in 2021. We had a couple FAM trips, I think, to each, either by land or by cruise. But so I would, if you're interested in those, sign up quickly because those will fill up. Those are later in November of 2022. We're still working on 2 or 3 more FAMs, and we'll share that information with you later. We're looking at an England and Wesley Heritage FAM trip. We're looking into details for an India FAM trip, and then a Jesus Trail FAM trip, so a different kind of FAM trip in the Holy Land. So we will announce those as soon as we have details available. So before we go, first of all, we have a host newsletter that will be coming out within the next week, so watch for that in your email boxes. We will have links to all the protocols for Israel and a lot of information on upcoming tours and other things related to EO. Our next webinar will be December 16. That will be our Christmas webinar. So we always have some fun surprises, fun interviews, fun guests. Join us for that webinar. So put that on your calendar. We'll be sending you a notice in the next week or two about that. And then as we close out, we hope that you'll stay with us to see a promo video for a new heritage tour. Lions of English Christian Faith. This is John Wesley and C.S. Lewis, kind of combining two different church fathers in England. So stay tuned for that. But thank you for joining us today. And we hope to see you in a couple of weeks on the Christmas webinar. And God bless and have a great Advent season.
The Lions of English Christian Faith Tour, presented by Educational Opportunities Tours, will guide you through the lives and legacies of John Wesley, Charles Wesley, and C.S. Lewis, while showcasing some of England's most iconic treasures. Immerse yourself in the thoughts and experiences of C.S. Lewis as you step foot into his memories. Explore where he lived and worked in Oxford. Magdalen College is where he spent most of his academic career. Many evenings, Lewis could be found down at the Eagle and Child Pub. Also visit Churchill Hospital, which hosted his marriage to Joy David Gresham, and tour their home where they lived till the end of their days. London holds 4 distinctively significant locations in the lives of the Wesley brothers. John was frequently seen worshiping at St. Paul's Cathedral. Charles experienced his conversion to Christianity in Little Britain, and Aldersgate Street is where John had his warming of the heart experience. City Road Chapel was once John's home and is also his gravesite. In Bristol, explore Charles' home in the oldest Methodist building in the world, which holds the New Room. Beyond following the lives of these faith leaders, you'll also explore many world-famous sites, especially in London. Take in Trafalgar Square, Big Ben, Buckingham Palace, and more. The journey doesn't have to end there. Register for an optional pre- or post-tour. Spend 2 extra days in London creating your own adventures with your included London Pass. You can also opt to spend 4 days in nearby Wales. Mysterious Stonehenge, Cardiff, the fascinating Black Mountains, and more await. Follow the life and legacy of John Wesley, Charles Wesley, and C.S. Lewis on this once-in-a-lifetime journey to England. Learn more and book your tour by contacting your local tour host, or contact EO Tours at www.eo.travel or by calling 800-247-0017.